Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 3 of Becoming Awesome. We're so excited to be here again. It's our third week. We're so happy to have whoever's on joining us and those I'll be joining later on. For those that don't know a little bit about the show, my name is Ray Thomas. I'm one of the co hosts. Becoming Awesome is an offshoot of a pilot program we had last year where we introduced other Amazonians to the world, in an unscripted and unedited format. And that level of authenticity earned trust with the external audience. So, with that said, this month we are going to be introducing a specific org and some of the fantastic people that work there and just talk about what their experience have been. So, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime and co host, Jenna Lass.
Hello, nice to see you, Ray, and welcome to our guests and, of course, the viewers that are joining. Thank you so much for your support. I'll add in that this month we're hosting guests specifically from the federal nonprofit and health organization within our worldwide public sector organization. That is Jerome Johnson and Kurt Robinson. We are so excited to get to know you. And to honor Black History Month, we have our friend and colleague, Sonia Holmes, who will be leading conversations around diversity and inclusion. And just for fun and for spirit and really for learning, we're going to be sprinkling in some Black history trivia. I can say that I understand that in order to advocate, it's really important to first learn. And so I'm eager to continue learning through all of you today. Over to you, Sonia. Please introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Sonia Holmes, and I'm a senior client lead recruiter. I support the Cloud Sales Center, and I'm really excited to be here today and really just lead this conversation and learn a little bit about Kurt and Jerome and just have a conversation around inclusion and belonging here at AWS. But before we really get into the meat of today's discussion, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about you both. And, if you could tell us a little bit about your career journey, what you do here at AWS, and, maybe even what you're most proud of when you think about what you do. I would love to learn about you. Could we start with maybe you, Kurt?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Sonia. So my name is Kurt Robinson. I am a manager of solutions architecture for federal civilian, what we call HEAT. It's inclusive of what we call Homeland Enforcement and Transportation. I love the name. We changed it to that this year because I lived in Miami for 13 years, and I already have a lot of HEAT paraphernalia that I can wear, and I don't have to buy anything new. So that's always one plus thing. And then just a little bit as far as my background goes, I started off in an operations role doing systems administration, pieces like that. Then moved into an architecture role, and that's what actually took me to Miami for a short period of time. After that, I got into product management for about 7 years, and wanted to actually build out some expertise, more expertise in a more rounded technical domain versus being in a specific area. So between that and the fact that AWS was looking to expand the overall organization and federal civilian, I decided to jump over here and move back into a more technical role, and it's been exciting ever since. And I know what everybody's thinking. Yes, I'm in a car. No, I'm not driving. Although if I was driving, I probably still could do it and multitask here with this laptop and the trees going behind me. So I have skills like that. I'll just leave that.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you discussed and brought up the elephant in the car. What's that lame note? All right. Well, Jerome, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Thanks again, Sonia. So Jerome Johnson, director leading the solutions architecture team that supports the national security space. Can't really tell you more about that because I would get in trouble. I've been with Amazon for about 9 years, and been in the IT space for the entire time of my career. Started off doing more software development. Actually, was more in the financial space. I think of Bank of America. supporting a lot of bankruptcy and collection systems. I don't see anybody's name on here, so it's all good. I know you guys are good in terms of where you are from a financial perspective. But then kind of came into cloud computing around 2008 when I was doing some research for a federal civilian company. I knew at that point in time this is a technology company I always wanted to work for, and had the opportunity to do so. And it's been an awesome career. I think the thing that I've been most proud of is in the fact that when you start talking about national security and how the sensitivity of that and the criticality of that, talking to customers for the first time, and I call it like the 7 stages of cloud adoption grief, to when you first go and talk to them, and they're like, we will never do this. This will never happen. To now, there's a lot of things that we're proud of that obviously can't talk about, that basically run on AWS on our side. So I think it's been awesome to kind of see that transition from a customer perspective and actually be able to have that impact. And I think one of the things I love the most about being a solutions architect is that it's very broad in a sense, and I talk to CIOs all the way down to software developers.
Sonia, before you go deeper, I just have to pop in for a minute, if that's okay.
Yeah, of
Jerome,
course.
you are incredibly humble because you talked about what you did. You did not share with the world that in your 9 years, you have had an incredible career progression. You started with us as a solutions architect, to a senior solutions architect, to a solutions architect manager, a senior solutions architect manager, and a director.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. No. And I will say, thanks for bringing that up. It's been an illustrious career, and I think Amazon has really given me a lot of opportunities to do that. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome.
Very humble indeed.
Yes. Look, I'm just here for the career advice. I'm taking notes, okay? Well, last week, my good friend Gordy, he was on and he led the conversation, and he really talked a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this week, I really want to focus a little bit more on the inclusion and belonging part. And there's a quote you might have heard or might be familiar with, but it says, diversity is a fact. Inclusion is an act. And if I had to sonify that or just bring belonging into that equation, I say belonging is the impact, right? So when I think about that and just think about inclusion and belonging, I love to know from your perspective, what does diversity or what does inclusion and belonging look like to you, in your words, if you can describe it, and then maybe something that you're doing within your individual teams to really drive that culture of belonging here. We'll start with you, Jerome, maybe?
Sure. So yeah, I definitely think inclusion and diversity is important. The one thing that I look at in terms of impact with that is that I've been very blessed and thankful to be able to be exposed for multiple cultures. My dad was in the Air Force. So I've traveled, lived in Japan for 4 years. So I think just being able to have a more broad sense of perspective on things and how that actually contributes to people doing awesome things in the world in terms of solutions, different perspectives. One of the things that I try to do on my team, leadership team, is just be authentic. Right. So my authentic self. Right. And what I mean by that is, I not only do I talk about things that happen at work, I may talk about some things that may be going on with me personally that I think that really gives a sense of vulnerability, because I think a lot of times with diversity, a lot of it is around people being comfortable, being able to express themselves in a way that that they feel like they can add value in. So for me, a lot of it's around authenticity, active listening, as well as being able to, I look at it as more positive intentions, right? So when I'm having a conversation with you, I'm looking to seek more information, and actually I'm very inquisitive about what you're doing versus being more standoffish and not necessarily diving a little bit deeper in something I don't know.
Yeah. I love that. I'd love to hear from you on that, Kurt. If you can tell us, what that looks like to you, and also maybe even share some of the things that you might be doing on your team to really drive that culture as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, what Jerome said definitely resonates with me. I mean, when I made the transition of going from originally living in North Carolina to moving to Miami, it was just a overall journey for me because I had to go from being in an area where I was speaking predominantly in English to all internal support people to basically immersing myself into like a Spanish organization at the time. So like everything from conference calls to like client meetings were all first language Spanish, where I was dealing with a lot of things in Latin America. So I had a lot of mentors and coaches throughout that time, as well as a Spanish instructor that was working with me at the time, and that helped me begin to be a little bit more comfortable talking with others in uncomfortable scenarios, especially when language is a barrier. And overcoming that just overall dynamic helped me kind of get a little bit more of a perspective when I was leading teams to ensure that people that are within my team have equal voice, are able to speak up, because all of us have backgrounds and scenarios or dynamics where we may not be the loudest voice in the room. And in every group you have, a few people, a handful of people that do, the majority of the speaking up, will interject and all of those pieces, where you may have a subsection of a team that isn't, speaking up, but they do have substantial amount of ideas, substantial amount of background, a lot of thoughts that they bring to the table that will help everybody progress. So, from my team, what I try to do is, one, I try to ensure that I'm highlighting the people that are more quiet on the team to give them a, um, an area or a voice of visibility to show some of their accomplishments. And then I also try to ensure that I'm having both the personal conversation with them to understand what's going on in their life, also having the conversation of what they're actually doing just in general professionally, so that I can create linkage between team members, so that if there are like interests, I can get them together. If there are areas where I see a team member that could potentially help out another one because one may be stronger in an area versus another, I try to link them up in that fashion, so that it basically moves the group together, versus it just being kind of, a smaller section of folks that are the high flyers, and then just kind of going for things, and not having that inclusive voice that makes us all better.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love what you shared on that too, especially about like having those who may not always be like the loudest in the room have a voice as well too. So I love how you actually seek out other perspectives, and also love Jerome about just allowing yourself and others to be authentic and bring themselves. It's so good. So good that I think it was like mic drop worthy. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Jenna, and you can just give us some Black History Month trivia.
Sure.
I think it's time for some trivia.
Yeah, well, before I do that, I do want to acknowledge that there is a very thoughtful question in the chat. Our AV guy, Ray, put it up on the screen. So talented. Jerome, this question is for you. What are some of the other stages of cloud grief customers face in your experience?
Yeah. So what this is telling me is that I need to go ahead and write a book on this, because it's good.
I'd
So
like
yeah,
a
I mean,
signed
I
copy,
think
please.
right. I think the first obvious one is very similar to what you've seen in the, other stages of grief in terms of denial. Right. First, it's like it will never happen, and then they kind of get into this phase of more of like, okay, let's just try something, right? And just to get a little bit more confident, and that then it turns into more of a, okay, yeah, we're just going to try this from a perspective of maybe some type of change that we're going to do, and then it gets into more of the accepting phase, and then all in, right? And I've seen it happen several times throughout my career. As an SA, as a senior manager, and now as a director, and it's amazing to see. I mean, and sometimes it takes companies a while to make that change. Again, over the 9 years that I've been here, it's been specifically with these set of customers, but to see the change happen from a leadership perspective all the way down to some of the folks that are on the ground has been amazing. But yes, to me, to shorten it up, it's denial to most of the time it's like all in, right? They've accepted that this is not a fast some type of a trend. This is actually something that is revolutionary, innovative, right? This is the next stage of IT in itself. So,
Excellent.
Thank you. Well, we're at the halfway mark, so we'll take a quick commercial break here. This is Becoming Awesome, and I have some Black trivia questions. So please, in the audience, we'd like to hear your response. And we may need some help if we have any shy viewers. So we'll rely on you guests to help out if we need to. We love the speech, the famous speech, "I Have a Dream" from Dr. Martin Luther King. Does anybody know where did Martin Luther King give that speech? Was it A, Birmingham, Alabama, B, Memphis, Tennessee, C, Washington, D.C., or D, Atlanta, Georgia? I see we have a C. Jerome or Kurt, can you validate or just confirm if it was Washington, D.C.?
I will confirm that
You
it was
will.
Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
Yeah.
where I
Well, thank you.
reside. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Back to you, Sonia.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I appreciate that. I would love to know, just in talking about like belonging, creating that culture, I would love to know if there's any moments in your career as an individual where, being included and feeling like you belong, like, is there any examples that you can share from your personal experience and how maybe that has shaped or impacted your career? We'll go with Kurt.
I didn't know if I was supposed to go first. So yeah. So I would say, yeah. One of the things that one of my mentors told me early on, and one of my first jobs was, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, because opportunity comes out of your uncomfort and the willingness to be able to step out of your box. And when I went from a role where it was more of an architecture role into a product role, I was completely out of my comfort level as far as the way that I speak with people, the way that I do presentations, the way that items had to be a little bit more fact-based, and precise and completely documented at any given time, which was a different dynamic than I was accustomed to before getting in that role, because in that role I was dealing with marketing and operations folks and finance and pieces like that. And I had an engineering background. I did not have a finance background. So so that whole learning curve there, overall, took on a transition there that I felt like um, um, later on was able to basically empowered me to make different types of decisions and come with a different perspective, which is the same thing that we look for similarly within people that we bring on board. A lot of the times when we're recruiting, you hear stuff, and people are thinking about AWS, we look for all types of different perspectives just in general. And I know from my team's perspective, I've looked at whether or not somebody is comfortable with AWS, not at all comfortable with AWS, has a domain of expertise in, for example, networking, or somebody has a domain of expertise in data, or somebody just hasn't even touched anything cloud related at all. Because coming on board, our customers are going through that same journey where you have some of them that are still, working within their own data centers, have their own various environments and working from that aspect. You have some that are just kind of dipping their toe, going to, the journey or the transition that Jerome was talking about a little bit earlier. And then you have others that, are very mature and, being able to bring in those different perspectives and different backgrounds from various team members to work with each other, help out each other, leading with the inclusivity part, and then being able to help the customer in whatever stage or whatever point they are in their journey. It's just been, it's been a great just life progression overall.
Awesome. And there's a follow-up question in the chat on this. It is, how do you keep up with the fast pace of technology?
I would say I'm still trying to learn that.
You're honest.
Thanks for keeping it real.
Right. Yeah. When you figure it out, let us know.
I don't think there's any silver bullet. It's just, you learn everything that you can. You give every opportunity whenever there's something new to pick up. If you have a challenge that you're seeing, dive deep in it, figure out, what it is. Spend the time, invest your own energy to learn it, because there's just so much technology out there. It's going so fast. There's no way to, really, be on top of it. We're all kind of moving along in this journey along with where we are.
One quick plug: when all else fails, there's Twitch.
Right.
That is true.
If I can add one thing to that as well, like I think one of the things that I think a lot of people get intimidated by, there's all this technology and this innovation. But the thing that you want to kind of baseline with is that, fundamentally, it's just cumulative knowledge. Like, especially with this technology, you start off knowing one thing. When I first came in, I'm a software developer, knew nothing about networking. The customer that I work with specifically had networking as their expertise. That's something I had to dive deep into. And then from there, when it comes to some of the innovation that's coming out, it's just building on top of the technology that's already there. And a lot of it is to make it more easier for you to actually leverage the technology. So if you know the baseline of this is how this one thing works and there's another thing that's released, it's like, oh, that makes this a lot easier for me to do this other thing, right? So I think a lot of people get intimidated by the new technology, but just remember, the new technology a lot of times is just innovating to make things more easier for you to focus on your business objectives and mission objectives, right? So get that baseline first, and after that, you'll get these new releases. Sometimes I may read a blog. I remember there's times that customers will ask me questions, and this is one plug for the SA, right? So a lot of times for a solutions architect, there is the phrase, know before you go. A lot of times with essays, we go before we know, right? We go to a meeting, they may be talking about an X, and then we end up talking about Y. So preparing yourself by looking at blogs, sometimes it is hands-on keyboard, but once you get that fundamental knowledge, it's a lot easier for you to just, be able to understand what the technology is. But you got to make time to learn.
And as you should be able to see, thank you, EC2 Twitch, for your great questions. This is another follow-up question. What are some of the challenges that you faced in your career, and how did you overcome them?
All right. Well, I guess I'll go first on this one, Kurt. Just in the sake of inclusiveness and things in HR, we'll go back and forth. So here, so I would say the challenges I faced in my career, and Kurt, you kind of mentioned on one of these topics I always talk about, and that's being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And with that, it a lot of times the milestones and the things that I faced in my career were always, for me, the critical milestones were failures. There were things that I thought I wanted to do that I wasn't able to do, which then opened up opportunities for me to do other things. Great examples, even where I'm at today, even at the degree that I have. I initially was going to get a double major computer science and mathematics. I was going to get a PhD in computer science initially. Then I was like going to do a lawyer thing. And, that's why I actually moved up to DC, was to be an intellectual property lawyer. And then realized that wasn't my path, right? That's something I didn't want to do. Actually, I was trying to do it for more prestige than anything else versus what I wanted to do. So I think for my career, a lot of it has been looking at the silver lining, right? Being uncomfortable, being comfortable. Failures look at failures as being great opportunities for you to learn other things, and the silver lining with that, right? And that comes to me at the end of the day. What I look at as the phrase of that is perseverance and resilience, right? There are things that I've had to go through, and being patient, and allowing those things to actually happen and progress versus me actually saying, you know what, I'm going to give up on this because this is too hard or this takes too long for me to get to, and realizing patience is a virtue. I know it's difficult because we're in this on-demand, instant gratification culture, but I think those are things that, at least I know it's more generalization, but I think it hopefully touches on that, right? And but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll send it over to you, Kurt. We have a few minutes. Would love to get your perspective. Some of your challenges. So before we wrap up.
Yeah, I would say my biggest challenge early off was myself, because I think that my aspirations that I had and my timelines that I had mentally set for myself, I had a little bit of impatience there with it. To what what Jerome was saying. So what I had to learn with myself is just basically have a North Star that I'm going towards, but learning to break it down into smaller things that I can accomplish little by little. Because, that North Star may change from one area to another, but if you're breaking it down into smaller pieces, as far as the things that you're accumulating to be able to get there, you can switch path or switch direction at any given time. And that's kind of like where the story of my background is, just in general, with the operations, and then deciding to move over to pre-sales engineering, then moving over to product, and then moving back into architecture, because there's certain things that I want to be able to get personally, and there's certain things that I want to be able to do for customers. But that journey has just shifted, and in order to be able to overcome it, when there's something that I don't know, I try my hardest to figure it out. If I can't figure it out, I go step up and ask others to figure out how they can help me understand it, and try to speed up just overall the time investment and maximize the potential to learn in general.
Excellent. So we only have a couple minutes left. I'm just going to do a quick rapid fire question. Kurt, just pick a number between 1 and 13.
I will say 2.
All right. Tell us something personal.
Oh, wow.
So now that's not a 2-minute question either.
So something personal about me. The reason why I'm actually in the car is because I am on the way to pick up my son from school. He's 5 years old, and at home I have a 6-month-old as well. So that's why from Amazon, all I'm doing is spending diapers, wipes, and genie diaper genie replacements nonstop. So that's what comes at my house every week. But that's another reason why I just in general love working at AWS, because there's the flexibility, for example, that I have within my current job to be able to do this. My wife doesn't drive, so it's all on me to be able to do this transit back and forth, to be able to go ahead and pick up my son so he can have a decent education overall.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jerome, quickly pick a number between 1 and 13.
13. It's 1 and 13.
Any trips planned? Do you have any trips planned?
Oh man, I hope my wife isn't listening to this. I did have one planned, but it got canceled. But I was gonna go to Dublin, and I was gonna take my wife to Dublin. Actually, based off of some things I actually was doing for work. So next trip plan will be an international one. We try to do one every year now is our thing with the family, and I have 2 girls. So actually we're thinking about Japan. So I want to go back to Japan, specifically Tokyo. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Jerome. And you know what, Sonia, I got to ask you the same question because you've been a fantastic guest co-host. Pick a number between 1 and 13.
I'm going to go with 11.
11. Favorite month and why?
Ooh, January. January is my month. I was born in January. My favorite number is 1. I was born on 1/11. So definitely January. That's an easy one.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all very much. We're at time. This has been episode 3 of Becoming Awesome. You've all been fantastic. Thank you for the
Thank
great questions, and thank you, Kevin Bourne, on the back end, helping pick out some of these great questions. And we look forward to seeing you next week, live every Tuesday from 11:30 to 12 p.m. PST. Have a great one. Take care.